just want to talk about the dreaded March 15th date. So a lot of teachers in like the LA area are getting laid off this year. And yesterday I was informed that I would likely be getting a pink slip.
The Department of Education under Donald Trump is planning to terminate about 50%, that's half, of its current staff. The plan is to place many people on administrative leave starting next Friday. Officials tell NBC News that the career staff will be asked to basically take laptops home, work from home tomorrow. This could lead to over 2,000 career employees getting termination notices.
So as you just heard, the Department of Education is laying off 50% of its workforce, and that's just the start. That's the beginning. The goal is to completely get rid of, at least I've heard, the entire department altogether.
We get rid of it.
And so what does that mean exactly? That has caused a wave of fear across the country and has resulted in a lot of teachers being laid off and losing their jobs.
37 educators at my school district who was laid off last Friday. Every day I walk into my classroom, I have this internal battle with myself over why I should keep going. I have considered leaving education altogether, not because I want to, but because of the lack of respect for educators in the United States. I am not just a number. I am a tenured teacher. I am the history department chair at my school, and my entire department was wiped out. Over the past 4 years, I've been working tirelessly to make our history courses more equitable for the students we serve. I currently teach AP US History and Government and Politics. Next year, I was set to introduce a new course for my department. When I was informing my students that I've been laid off, they shouted in frustration. Many who signed up for my course was only because I was going to be their teacher. I am not just a number. I am a first-generation Mexican American who became a teacher to educate students like me. When I was in school, the representation was scarce. Just when we finally got it together, these massive layoffs are threatening to erase the progress we've made.
So her video really makes me think about the fact that, yes, I will agree that teachers for a long time now have been very undervalued in terms of what they're paid and in terms of the respect that they received. And if you notice, her shirt, it said sick and tired. She's been dealing with this for a while now, it seems, even before these mass layoffs with the Department of Education. And by the way, if you're asking, how does the layoffs in the Department of Education affect teachers when teachers are paid by the states? A teacher's not a federal position. Well, the answer to that is federal aid. States get money from the federal government to fund different programs. And especially during the pandemic, there was tons of money coming from the federal government to different states to fund all these different programs that were happening, whether it's with school lunch, whether it's with after-school programs, whether it's with paying paraeducators and people that help around in the classroom. And so all that funding that was flushed into the school systems across the state then encouraged those school systems to hire more teachers. And as a result, once the pandemic era ended, that funding kind of dried up. And now, especially with what's going on with the federal government, you can see how it has a trickle effect. And so teachers like her are being affected by this and being laid off.
Got it.
She says she's a tenured teacher. Okay, I've worked in education before, and when you have tenure, that's very serious. It's very hard to get rid of someone who's tenured. So what I have seen with a lot of these videos is that some of these teachers that are getting laid off are newer teachers, and so that makes more sense. Not to say it's good, but the fact that she's a tenured teacher getting laid off is pretty interesting. And this next clip is going to talk a little bit more about how the state funding works from the federal government.
I'm very concerned about keeping the money flowing to the states, because that's what keeps the services going for our students, our public school students, K through 12 across the United States. And that's really all the department ever does, is just get the money to those folks. In exchange, they have to get us some data, and we use it to make decisions on where to best allocate resources. I don't know how that's going to take place with what's happened.
So let's explain to folks exactly what that means. So the federal government gives a sum of money to a certain state, let's say for literacy programs or special ed or something of that sort, right? Then you, as a data guy, track to see if that money is going where it's supposed to be and making sure that money or those programs are thriving because of those federal funds, right?
At its core, that's what we're all have a different role to play within that process. But yeah, that's the entire situation.
So as you heard from that clip, a big part of what the Department of Education was doing was they're using data to determine how to distribute this money equitably across different states. And what the new administration is trying to do is put the power of education back in the hands of individual states, which you might think is a good idea or you might think is a bad idea. It does open up different potentialities for some states to perform better than others because they're better funded, they're better run, and especially even within certain states, different school districts and different counties and states it might affect how much funding they receive. And of course, we know that might end up being more disadvantageous to certain groups. And so I think that's one of the big concerns that people have. And especially if you don't get funding to those areas, you can have a lack of teachers, which there was already a lack of teachers. And it's not just in, let's say, urban areas, it's also in more rural areas as well, which is why you might have Teach for America in these different areas that are underserved, and this might affect that. With that being said, there is one state in particular that is being hit particularly hard, and that's the state of California.
Is it just me, or am I the only one afraid of teacher layoffs next year? I'm a teacher in California. There's going to be a bunch of layoffs next year. One is because California is simply too expensive. People are leaving. And did you know that funding is tied to student attendance? This district a few years ago had 100,000 students, and now we're down to 60,000 students. Second is that we used to have COVID pandemic relief money, and now we don't. So during that time, districts were hiring a bunch of people, and now we don't have that money, so they can't afford to keep these people on. On my rank, I'm like number 800 out of 3,000 something teachers in my school district. That means I'm the bottom 800, not the top 800. That'd be nice. So I want to ask you guys, teachers who worked during the 2008 pink slip era, like, what did y'all do to prepare for these mass layoffs?
Okay, so as you heard, she mentioned two different things that are going on in California. One is a max exodus. A lot of people have been leaving California, moving out to other states for various reasons, which we won't get into in this video. And two, which I already touched upon, is the pandemic relief, or the pandemic era has ended. And so the funding that came with the pandemic era has dried up. And so teachers like her who are not tenured, who are in the bottom, not by performance, but maybe just when they were hired, tier of teachers, they're going to be, unfortunately, the ones that are laid off first. And she made that video before 2025. I think it was like December. And so now it's already happening. So she saw it coming. Hopefully she prepared for it. But the point is, California and some other states are being hit particularly hard versus others. Nonetheless, guys, we always need to tie this back to the money. Not to say that it's teaching and people aren't important, but it comes back to the money. How does this affect you and I? Well, in the area I live in, I've seen a lot of different things happening in the housing market, particularly because I live in the DMV. And so people that are affected by the federal layoffs in DC, that's affecting me as well, indirectly. And so as you all know, I'm in the market for a house, and I've been noticing a lot more inventory coming on the market. I think that's because people are having fears, and maybe the people that were sitting on the sidelines waiting to sell are now trying to sell quickly because they're afraid they don't know what's going to happen, or home prices are going to keep dropping, or are they going to drop like the stock market is. People are kind of scared. So I'm noticing that. I'm also noticing a lot of federal employees who were laid off fighting for jobs that other people were looking for, which makes it more difficult. And people were already having challenges with finding work to begin with. So now that these teachers may be being laid off in the DMV, there's going to be even more competition. There's going to be even more fear, and there's going to be more blood, so to speak, in the water with all these people not knowing what's going on. And we're going to see that impact the housing market. We may see that impact stocks. We even go really what's impacting stocks right now is more of tariffs. Nonetheless, keep an eye on it because we don't know what's going to happen. At the end of the day, what does this all add up to? It all adds up to making smart financial decisions. Always keep an emergency fund. Always try to have more than one source of income, which I know is easier said than done, especially when people are struggling to find one job. But listen, if you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 masters and a doctorate degree, don't be too proud to go and work at Amazon warehouse. Don't be too proud to drive Uber Eats. Don't be too proud to go work at a retail store, okay? Whatever you can do to get money into your pocket, do that, because depending on one source of income is not the best move. If you can do a side hustle, not everyone's to build a business. I'm not saying do that, but if that's something you want to do, start a side hustle. If you have a particular skill that is profitable, try to start a side hustle with that skill. Maybe you're a graphic designer. Maybe you know how to code very well. You can take on side projects. Maybe you know how to, you're good with UX, UI. You can build websites, whatever it is, do that. And I think that's the best thing we can do right now while we navigate through this tumultuous time. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for sticking around. If you have made it this far, please feel free to give the video a like and a thumbs up, which are the same thing, and to subscribe if you feel so too inclined. And until next time, make smart financial decisions.